Infiniti is on the offensive, says car tester Michel Assenmacher. The Q30 was the Infiniti's first venture into the compact class, and now they're expanding the series with the crossover QX30. It too boasts a typical Infiniti design. The QX30 completes Infiniti's compact series. The crossover's design is both elegant and powerful. The Japanese carmaker's signature double-arch grille and eye-inspired LED headlights make for a striking front-end look. The three sweeping asymmetrical lines are reminiscent of flowing water, making for an elegant and dynamic appearance. The QX30 comes in only one engine variant, a 2.2-liter turbocharged diesel. A further demonstration that this crossover was conceived as an add-on to the Q30 series. The Q30 and QX30 are assembled at the Sunderland plant in England, making them the first Infinitis built both in and for Europe. The QX30's trunk holds an ample 430 liters. The QX30 is both sporty and stylish. The suspension keeps the car comfortably quiet, with no loss in responsiveness. The powertrain is borrowed from Mercedes-Benz and delivers the expected state-of-the-art performance. All-wheel drive and a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission are standard. Michel says the steering in the QX30 is responsive and gives a good feel for the road. The Infiniti engineers wanted to make sure the steering would be neither too sensitive or too sluggish, and they succeeded. The collaboration between Daimler and Renault-Nissan is especially apparent in the interior. Only the logo on the steering wheel was changed. The buttons, switches, and levers will be familiar to Mercedes drivers. And the layout is exactly the same as in the Mercedes GLA. Michel says the interior is both elegant and luxuriously equipped, but it does feel slightly cramped inside. All the controls are within reach, but they seem a bit crammed together. The overall look is appealing, but on this high-gloss bar you'll see every little smudge right off the bat. That's a minus point in Michel's book. The 2.2-liter turbocharged diesel engine generates 125 kilowatts and accelerates from 0 to 100 in 8.5 seconds. Top speed is 215 kilometers an hour. Infiniti says the QX30 consumes 4.9 liters per 100 kilometers. The Infiniti QX30 has just 2 centimeters more ground clearance than the Q30, and visually the only difference are the touches of plastic on the lower end of the bumpers. Overall, Michel is happy with the QX30's handling. It has a nice grip on the road and the seats are comfortable. The only drawback is the slightly cramped feel in the driver's seat. The QX30 retails in Germany starting at close to 39,000 euros. That's about 1,000 less than the Mercedes GLA, which sports an identical engine. So there's a price advantage, and the Infiniti model has more features. There are places you don't normally have access to, like this one. It may be hard to believe, says car tester Matas Kurat, but this place is top secret. It's the track where Mercedes-Benz tests prototypes on different kinds of pavement. Everything is set up for Mercedes to demonstrate an entirely new type of vehicle. A crowd of journalists are here for the world premiere, and here it comes. A truck. And not just any truck. Mercedes says this truck will revolutionize the distribution of goods in cities. 120 years after Gottlieb Daimler built the first motorized truck, Mercedes has finally produced the first big electrically powered truck. Stefan Buchner, the head of Mercedes' truck division, says diesel technology has served us well for many decades. Electro-technology has been making great progress in passenger cars. Mercedes is now building on that technology with its new truck. Buchner expects electric motors to continue to develop rapidly in the next few years. But what's really fueled development is customer demand for emission-free vehicles that make little or no noise when they're on the road in cities during all hours of day and night. The urban e-truck weighs about 1.7 tons more than a conventional diesel-powered truck. The batteries in the frame give it a range of up to 200 kilometers between charges. Of course, Mata says there's more to an electric truck than batteries and an electric motor. There are a lot of peripheral technology to integrate, starting with this direct current socket that can take on 150 kilowatts. You won't find such heavy-duty sockets on the wall. Right now, they're limited to 50 kilowatts, but higher capacity is surely the wave of the future. This holds the charging electronics, and this is where the current is distributed during charging and use. And down here is a transformer, which is included because a truck has a lot of equipment that takes only 24 volts, like the radio and all the modern onboard electronics. These are the radiator hoses and the distributor. There's also a high-voltage air compressor. In a combustion engine, the auxiliary units provide compressed air. Here, it's produced separately, so that the driver can operate the brakes, adjust levers, and so forth. Traditional truck technology also plays an important role. Mata says that in an ordinary internal combustion truck, a retarder builds up enough resistance so that the driver doesn't have to pump the brakes the whole time when going downhill. Here, that's solved with two braking resistors. If the truck has to brake when the battery is full, electric energy is diverted to the resistors. It doesn't vanish, of course. It's converted to heat, which can be used to heat the vehicle in winter. The electronically powered rear axle is pretty much the same as in Daimler's Evo hybrid bus, with minor modifications. And the rear axle can also be steered electrically. So you need all sorts of additional electronics to turn a regular truck into an e-truck. The Fuso Canter e-cell is much smaller, but it's already on the road in the 7.5-ton class. After successful pilot testing in Portugal, a handful are now undergoing road testing in Germany. The Hermes Logistics Company is testing one of them, and they give it a thumbs up. While the initial costs are higher than for a diesel truck, its upkeep is much lower, and that's crucial in the logistics industry. Dirk Rahn, CMO of Hermes Germany, says he could envision using more electric trucks as long as they meet three criteria. First, enough cargo space to carry the packages. Second, adequate range. And last but not least, they have to make economic sense. Mercedes' goal is to eventually reach the point where all truck traffic in the city is emission-free. The urban e-truck is still a prototype, says Matas, but shows what the future might bring. It will appear, without camouflage coloration, at the IAA Utility Vehicle Show in September. But it won't be on the streets until at least 2020. So until then, we'll have to put up with diesel trucks in our cities. The British brand McLaren, long famous in Formula One racing, is releasing its Sports Series, which will feature three models designed for everyday driving. All three, the 540C Coupe, the 570S Coupe, and the 570 GT, use the same carbon fiber monocell chassis. The 3.8-liter bi-turbo engine is mid-mounted for balance. Output in the 570S and the GT is 419 kilowatts. The GT's adaptive suspension is a bit gentler than the suspension in the S. Another highlight on the GT is the side hinge trunk, designed to hold two pieces of bespoke luggage. That makes the 570 GT the first McLaren ever to sport a trunk.
At haute couture shows in Paris, as car tester Ines Petri, everyone wants to sit in the front row. Today, she's testing the Citroen DS3 convertible, a car with French chic to spare. And even better, we have front row seats to enjoy the show. The smallest of the DS models is the Citroen DS3. Since the 1950s, DS has stood for stylish and elegant design. In 2009, Citroën revived the tradition with a whole family of vehicles. Now the DS3 has received its first facelift. We'll test it as a convertible with a 1.2-liter three-cylinder gasoline engine, which generates 81 kilowatts of power. Ines likes that at 1,500 RPM, the engine is already at its maximum torque of 205 Newton meters. So the car has snappy acceleration, well, even in the low rev range. New is the combination with a 6-speed automatic transmission, which shifts smooth as silk. The DS3 sprints from 0 to 100 in 10.7 seconds. That doesn't sound like much, but in everyday operation, it's frisky enough. On the highway, the little French car has a top speed of 188 kilometers an hour. The front end of the DS3 is where the design overhaul is most evident. Citroën's trademark double-angle logo on the radiator grille has made way for a logo unique to the DS family. It looks like the letters D and S. The headlights are also nicely stylish. The high-gloss anthracite gray light alloy wheel rims are modern and sporty. The roof seems to float above the body, and just like haute couture fashion, even the folding of the fabric on the convertible roof is styled down to the last detail. The DS3 convertible's trunk is only 30 liters smaller than in its hardtop brother, but the way that it works is quite different. Ines likes that the roof automatically moves upward when she wants to open the trunk, allowing the trunk lid to open comfortably. But the trunk opening is rather small, which makes loading the trunk somewhat difficult.
Allerdings muss das ganze Gepäck durch diesen kleinen Raum und das kann mitunter ganz schön schwierig sein.
It's summer, so we'll test the trunk with barbecue equipment. The charcoal is loaded with no difficulty, but the two halves of the grill have to be taken apart to fit through the opening. In the interior, the driver is greeted with the finest materials. The new 7-inch color touchscreen in the middle console provides access to all the vehicle's functions. It's eliminated 20 buttons, including the radio's volume knob. But finding the function you're looking for will take a bit of practice. In another attractive touch, the climate control system has its own small indicator. It's easy to find the button for the roof, which can be opened or closed at driving speeds up to 120 kilometers an hour. Depending on the driving situation, it can be rolled down the entire length of the car or even folded up on top of the trunk. Ines says that running the roof back gives you a true convertible feeling. With the wind in your hair, it's like the essence of summer. But the drawback is that the folded roof blocks much of the view from the rearview mirror. When the roof is put into the middle position, the rear windshield is visible again, and the driver has a much better view. Options for the DS3 include a front and rear parking assist, plus a rear view camera. That's a big help in parallel parking. The active city brake assist makes city driving safer by helping to prevent low-speed collisions. Ines says a DS3 convertible costs 2,800 euros more than a DS3 hardtop in Germany. But for that, you get the fun of summer open-air driving. But Ines does note a few drawbacks. First, the trunk's small volume, and especially its narrow opening. And second, that the DS3 comes only with 2 doors, which also could be inconvenient for everyday driving.
Was ebenfalls im Alltag kleine Einschränkungen mit sich bringt.
But if you're a fan of haute couture, you're happy to splash out for high style. Comfort takes a back seat. And just like in couture fashion, owners of a DS3 are given plenty of choices to express their own individual style. The DS3 comes in 80 different roof and body color combinations. Cycling is one of the healthiest and most environmentally friendly ways of getting from A to B. Our car tester Reinhold Deisenhofer says the numbers bear this out, with about 72 million bikes in Germany. Many people who want to ride their own bike on holiday bring it with them, either on top, on the back, or inside the car. But safety experts aren't too fond of roof bike racks. Herbert Köhler owns a bike shop, and he's familiar with all the different bike transportation systems. He says roof racks are suited only to lightweight racing bikes. They're easier to lift, and the mounting equipment doesn't have to be quite so sturdy. Bikes on the roof may vibrate or sway, and that can be dangerous. So that leaves inside the car or on the back. Hitch-mounted bike racks are especially useful on longer trips. The bike rack is attached to the trailer hitch on the car. A turn of the key and the rack is secured. Then hook up the electrical connection for the trailer's rear lights, mount the bikes on the rack, and secure them. Reinhold has a few tips. To make mounting faster and easier, it's best to remove everything that's detachable and heavy from your bike first. That includes the water bottle and the bike basket. Then there's e-bikes. An e-bike can weigh 30 kilos, and the battery is heavy and expensive. So it's best to remove the battery and the speedometer, which could fall off, and put those in your car. The number of bikes you can transport depends on your car's permitted load weight, so be sure to check that first. Reinhold says that even if you're not slowed down by sun, rain, or other glitches, remember, thieves are everywhere. So be sure to lock up your bikes too, and put a license plate on the rack, since your car's plate is hidden. Your car will be longer with the rack on it, so parking aids won't work properly. And the extra weight also affects handling. Inside the car, your bikes will travel in comfort, but you'll have less space for passengers and cargo, of course. Clamping the bikes to an inside bike rack is a simple process. Reinhold says a universal system makes adjusting the rack to the width of your car a snap. Remove the bike's front wheel, put the bike in the trunk, secure the bike fork, and you're done. Herbert Köhler says that if you have expensive bikes, inside racks are nice because you're not risking scratches, damage, or dirt. And they're theft-proof, so inside your car, your bikes will usually be safe. With the bike safely stowed inside the car, you can set off. With an inside rack, driving speed isn't an issue. But rear-mounted racks can come with speed restrictions, so be sure to check your user's manual, mounting instructions, and any rating plates on the rack. And whatever the speed limit for your rack, it's best to stay under 130 kilometers an hour on the highway. Flowing contours, bereft of unsightly corners and edges. A streamlined design that looks futuristic today. But this car is a cousin of the original Volkswagen Bug. The man who created it was Ferdinand Porsche, and the car was a design precursor to the production model that would make his name world famous. The Porsche 64 was a very limited edition, with just 3 built. The aerodynamic form helped boost its top speed to 160 kilometers per hour. The car is of huge value to Porsche, explains Thomas Koenig, co-founder of a classic cars museum in Hamburg. It was one of Ferdinand Porsche's dreams. He wanted to build racing cars and products for the people. The Porsche 64 was created in 1939 in parallel with the original Volkswagen, the Beetle. Ferdinand Porsche was head of VW at the time. The 64 was supposed to compete in a high-profile Berlin to Rome race. The race was canceled due to the outbreak of World War II. The Porsche 64 would have been among the favorites. The aerodynamics and lightweight construction were ahead of their time. The 64 is housed in a museum located in Hamburg's redeveloped Hafen City Docks area. The unique collection on display focuses on post-war German racing car heritage, and therefore Porsche. It was a personal mission for Thomas Koenig and Oliver Schmidt. The two friends had always been fascinated by Porsche models. That interest evolved over the years, and eventually they said, there's more to German post-war motorsports than just Porsche. It was the post-war Reconstruction era that really interested them, a time when car makers had very modest means at their disposal. One of those pioneers was Otto Mate, a racing driver from Austria. He built and drove this curious-looking contraption. After his death in 1995, the museum bought that Porsche Volkswagen mongrel as well as Mate's spare parts collection. Thomas Koenig had no idea of the treasure trove he'd accidentally acquired. It was while rummaging around in old boxes belonging to Mate that Thomas Koenig discovered parts from the second 64 model, and now takes pride of place in the museum. The biggest problem was the missing body, he recalls. They took the model they already had as a template, but each model was experimental, so there were a lot of differences.
Auch zu diesem Fahrzeug gibt es viele Unterschiede, da jedes der einzelnen Fahrzeuge wirklich ein Versuchsträger war.
Restoring that second 64 to its former glory took the best part of a decade, but you won't find this beauty gracing the streets. In terms of automotive historical value, it's inestimable. The 4-cylinder boxer engine, with a displacement just short of 1 liter, was a product of Volkswagen. The air-cooled engine with 2 carburetors generated about 35 horsepower. This unique aerodynamic body was designed by Erwin Komenda, the man behind the design of the Volkswagen, as well as the record-breaking Mercedes T80 later on. All these projects were overseen by Ferdinand Porsche. The specifications book from back then must have included elements of the Volkswagen. You can recognize the form of the Beetle in the ribbing here, in the hood, at the front, and then at the rear. We find these air inlets that were featured in the Beetle too. Those in the know will recognize what you could call a squashed Beetle. And the basis for later rear-engine Porsche models, the 356 and the 911. The interior is pure Porsche, sober or even Spartan. The awesome 64, the first racing car ever to bear the famous Porsche name.